A man of 45 came to me. He'd suffered a compulsion neurosis since he was 20, and by the time I saw him, he'd cut himself off from the world almost entirely. One day, he said something I've never forgotten. He said, "But I can never admit to myself that I've wasted the best 25 years of my life." Sit with the exactness of that. He could see the wreckage perfectly. What he could not see, what he was in fact working very hard not to see, was that the whole tragedy originated in himself, and that he was still, that very day, feeding it and keeping it alive. Everyone knows the term shadow now. Almost nobody has done the thing that word actually requires. Tonight, I want to fix that. Your shadow is everything about yourself you have decided is not you. The traits, impulses, weaknesses, and appetites you've pushed out of your self-image because they don't fit the person you'd like to be. It isn't your evil twin, and it isn't a mystical entity. It's simply the part of your own personality that your conscious ego has disowned and shoved into the dark, where, unattended, it takes on a life of its own. I want to be clear about how much effort this costs, because this is where the popular version goes soft. Becoming conscious of the shadow is a moral problem that challenges your entire personality. No one manages it without considerable moral effort, because it means recognizing the dark aspects of yourself as present and real and yours. That recognition is the essential condition for any genuine self-knowledge, and precisely because it's essential, it meets enormous resistance. This is not an afternoon's insight. In my clinical experience, it was painstaking work, extended over a long time. And here's a detail people miss. The contents of the shadow have an emotional nature. They carry a kind of autonomy, an obsessive, almost possessive quality. Notice that emotion, real affect, the kind that grabs you, is not something you do. It's something that happens to you. And these affects erupt exactly where your adaptation is weakest, which is to say, they show you the location of your own inferiority. When you're suddenly, disproportionately furious, that flash of heat is the shadow announcing precisely where you're least developed, least in control, most primitive. Some of the shadow you can actually reclaim with insight and goodwill. You catch yourself in a pettiness, you recognize it as yours, you work on it. Difficult, but possible. But there's a harder category, and this is where the shadow becomes almost impossible to touch, because it hides inside projection. The most obstinate parts of the shadow don't feel like parts of you at all. They feel, beyond all possible doubt, like qualities of other people. The cause of your emotion appears, unmistakably, to lie in the other person. And no matter how obvious it is to a neutral observer that you're projecting, there's very little hope you'll see it yourself until you're genuinely convinced that you throw a very long shadow. Watch what unrecognized projection actually does to a life, because it's mechanical and it's merciless. It is not you who consciously projects, it's the unconscious that does it, which is why I say you meet with projections, you don't make them, and their effect is to isolate you. Instead of a real relationship with the world, you now have an illusory one, because projection changes the world into a replica of your own unknown face. Everywhere you look, you meet your own disowned material staring back, and you experience it as the malevolence of your surroundings. That produces a feeling of incompleteness, then sterility, which you again blame on a hostile world, which deepens the isolation, and round it goes. Every projection you throw between yourself and reality makes it harder to see through the next one. What's being spun, I said, is a cocoon that will finally envelop you completely. That's the man who wasted 25 years. He was inside the cocoon. Consciously, he was bewailing and cursing a faithless world receding further into the distance. Unconsciously, he was the one spinning the thread. You are doing some version of this right now. I include myself, always. Everyone throws a shadow, and the denser it is, the darker and more solid it gets. And this is the exact bridge to where I started this whole channel. Remember the collective shadow from the scapegoat video. None of us stands outside humanity's black collective darkness, and the evil we won't face in ourselves gets projected onto the enemy. The personal shadow is the same mechanism, one scale down. The tyrant projecting his darkness onto a whole nation, and the isolated man projecting his onto his neighbors are running identical machinery, which means the personal work and the political stakes are not two different subjects. They never were. A world full of people who cannot see their own shadow is precisely the raw material a mass movement needs. The consulting room and the century are the same story. The uncomfortable arithmetic is this: every trait you cannot tolerate in others is a reliable map of your own shadow. The intensity of your contempt is the measure. When your reaction to someone is wildly out of proportion to what they've actually done, you are almost certainly looking at a piece of yourself you refuse to own, hanging on their face. So how do you actually meet your shadow, given how hard it fights back? Start with the emotion, because the emotion is the doorway. The next time you're seized by a disproportionate reaction, contempt, fury, fascination, disgust, that flare-out is the shadow surfacing. Don't discharge it and don't suppress it. Treat it as information. Ask the question almost nobody asks in that moment. What is this showing me about me? Where is my adaptation weakest that this hits so hard? Then apply the projection test, which is simple to state and brutal to run honestly. The traits that most reliably enrage you in other people are the strongest candidates for your own disowned material. Not always. Sometimes a scoundrel is just a scoundrel, but the disproportion is the tell. When the charge is far bigger than the cause, the surplus is coming from you. And then the moral effort itself, which I won't pretend is pleasant. You have to recognize the dark thing as present, real, and yours, without either wallowing in it or rushing to eliminate it. The goal is not to become the shadow, and it's not to exterminate it. It's to know it so that it stops running you from behind. A recognized shadow is an integrated part of a whole person. An unrecognized one is a cocoon. One caution, the same one from the very first videos. Some of what surfaces in this work isn't shadow at all. It's deeper still, the anima or animus I described earlier, the contrasexual figure. And that's a different piece of work. The shadow is the same-sex personal darkness, the part of you that's recognizably you but disowned. Start there. It's the most accessible of the inner figures and the easiest to experience, which is exactly why it's where the work begins. The man who wasted 25 years wasn't undone by a hostile world. He was undone by his refusal to look at the one thing that could have freed him, the part of the wreckage that was his to own. The tragedy wasn't the shadow, everyone has one. The tragedy was that he'd rather curse the world forever than admit he threw it. Meeting your shadow is the least flattering work a person can do. It's also the only door out of the cocoon. I never found another one. If you liked this video, share, like, and subscribe. If you are interested in learning more about Carl Jung's teachings and take the evaluation that will help you understand more about yourself, go to selfindividuation.com.